When I was little, people called me the poor orphan boy. They used to say, that child will never become anything in life. I remember those words as clearly as I remember my mother's trembling hands as she packed my school lunch, half a piece of bread and a small wish in her heart that someday I'd live the life she could only dream of. This isn't just a story about money or success. It's about love, loss, faith, and the invisible strength that comes from a mother's prayer. It's about how one small boy, abandoned by fate, turned his pain into purpose and left the world stunned. I was 3 years old when my father passed away. I don't even remember his face. All I had was a single photo, a faded picture of him holding me as a baby. My mother kept that photo like treasure. Every night she'd hold it close, whispering prayers under her breath. We lived in a small, broken house on the edge of the city. The roof leaked every time it rained, and the walls carried cracks that mirrored the ones in our hearts. My mother worked tirelessly, stitching clothes for people who barely paid her enough to buy rice and oil. But she never complained. When I turned 6, I began to understand how cruel the world could be. Relatives who once promised to help suddenly stopped visiting. They called us unlucky. Some even said my father's death was a curse on us. At night, I'd ask, "Mom, why don't they like us?" She'd smile weakly and say, "Because they don't know your worth yet, my son." Those words stayed with me. Every time someone looked down on us, I remembered her voice. They don't know your worth yet. When I grew older, the real struggle began. My mother wanted me to study, but we couldn't afford books. I'd borrow old, torn textbooks from neighbors. During the day, I worked at a local mechanic shop. Greasy hands, oil-stained clothes, and endless hours fixing other people's cars. At night, I'd sit under a dim light trying to study. Sometimes I'd fall asleep over the books, exhausted. My mother would wake me gently, whispering, "Keep going, my son. You're almost there." But there were days when hope felt too far. When my mother got sick, I had to choose medicine or food. I still remember standing outside the pharmacy, counting coins that weren't enough. That night I cried for the first time in years. Not because I was tired, but because I felt powerless. Still, I didn't stop. I took every small job I could, repairing phones, washing cars, delivering groceries. I learned how to smile even when I was breaking inside. And then one day, fate tested me in a different way. While fixing a customer's phone, I noticed how many people were ordering clothes online. Something clicked inside me, an idea that could change my life. What if I started selling clothes online too? I didn't have money to buy stock, but I had determination. I borrowed $100 from a friend, bought a few plain t-shirts, and started customizing them with designs I created myself. I built a simple website using free tools, and just like that, my journey began. The first month, I received 2 orders. I remember the excitement in my mother's eyes when I showed her. 2 orders, she said, smiling. That's how every big journey begins. I delivered those shirts myself, walking miles to save delivery costs. I wrapped them carefully, added a handwritten note that said, "Thank you for trusting a small dream." Soon, people started sharing my designs on social media. Orders tripled, then doubled again. Within a year, I had enough to open a small store. Just one rented room with a banner that said, "Dreamwear, from struggle to style." I'll never forget the first time I earned enough to take my mother to a real restaurant. She looked around, eyes shining, and said softly, "Your father would have been proud." That night I realized something. Success isn't just about money. It's about moments like that. As months passed, my business exploded. Celebrities started wearing my brand. I hired people who were once like me, struggling, desperate, but full of potential. The same relatives who once called us unlucky started calling me our successful nephew. They'd visit my office with fake smiles and long-forgotten affection. "Son, we always knew you'd make it big," they'd say. I just smiled and offered them tea, because deep down I remembered every moment of silence when we needed them the most. But success came with its own pain. My mother's health started to decline again. She was proud of me, but she was tired. One night she held my hand and whispered, "Promise me you'll never stop being kind, no matter how rich you become." I nodded, tears in my eyes. 2 months later, she was gone. After her funeral, I couldn't sleep for nights. The house felt empty. The silence was unbearable, but I knew she wouldn't want me to stop. So I poured my grief into work, building, expanding, creating. In 3 years, I turned my small store into a national brand. I owned multiple outlets, employed hundreds of workers, and my company's logo now shined on billboards across the country. One morning, as I stood in my high-rise office, I looked out over the city and whispered, "Mom, we made it." Later that day, my assistant walked in and said, "Sir, your relatives are here. They say they want to talk about a business partnership." I smiled. "Let them in." They walked in, dressed in expensive suits, pretending nothing had ever happened. "Son, we always believed in you," one of them said. "We're proud of you." I offered them tea, just like old times. They talked about investments, collaborations, and family reunions. But I knew it wasn't about love. It was about opportunity. When they left, I went to my mother's photo on my desk and said, "Mom, you were right. They finally know my worth." That evening, I drove to the graveyard. I sat beside her grave, talking as if she could still hear me. "I bought our old house back," I said. "I fixed the roof, repainted the walls, even planted roses in front. It's beautiful now, Mom, just like you wanted." The wind blew gently, and for a moment I felt peace. Before leaving, I whispered, "I may have been an orphan, but I was never truly alone. Your prayers built my world." Today, when people ask how I became successful, I tell them, it wasn't luck. It wasn't just hard work. It was my mother's faith. I started with nothing, not even a father's hand to hold. But I had something far more powerful. A mother's belief and my own refusal to give up. The same people who once called me the poor orphan boy now call me Sir. And every time they do, I remember that lonely child sitting in a broken house, dreaming of a better life. Because that child never really disappeared. He just learned how to turn pain into power. Sometimes, life takes everything from you, your comfort, your peace, even the people you love, and not to punish you, but to prepare you. The world once saw a poor orphan, but that orphan built an empire out of broken dreams. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need validation. All he needed was faith. Because when the world turns its back on you, remember, it's only giving you space to stand taller. So, to every child who's been called nothing, to every dreamer who's been told they'll never make it, and remember my story. Pain can break you or it can build you. The choice is yours, and when your time comes, leave them shocked.